Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and 2 new Diablo books have been discovered coming up in 2023. So in this video, we're going to take a look at what those could mean for a Diablo 4 release date, plus what new information and theories we can gather to help piece together some more details about Diablo 4's story. This brings us to a total of 3 Diablo books releasing within the next year. We've spoken about the first one in the past, and speculation on past patterns with that was pointing towards a potential March 21st release date for Diablo 4, but we're going to rehash all that, go over things, and see what we can discern. But before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Keeps, which is all about keeping your hair. About 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they reach 35. Some men lean into that shaved head look, but some enjoy having and styling hair and want to know if they have any options. There's no magic cure for baldness, but there are preventative steps to stop it from progressing and keep the hair you have. Keeps is a subscription service that focuses on making it easier and more affordable for men to treat their male pattern baldness, all from the comfort of their home, using clinically proven, research-backed treatments at about half the cost of a traditional pharmacy. Physicians at Keeps will help pick the right treatment plan for you, and every treatment plan comes with a full year of unlimited messaging, so you can contact your prescribing doctor at any time. And then it's as simple as subscribing and having everything you need delivered right to your door, with refill reminders sent to ensure you don't run out of what you need. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/RHYKKER. Now, first off, the 2 new books that have appeared include Diablo, Book of Lorath, and Diablo Legends of the Barbarian, Bul-Kathos. They'll be releasing in that order. The original book that's coming this year is Diablo Tales from the Horadric Library. That last one is releasing on October 18th of this year. The Book of Lorath is releasing on April 18th, 2023, and Legends of the Barbarian, June 13th. We'll talk a bit more about what all those books are about, but first, a quick reminder, and I'm going to disappear my face for a moment, because right here we know from the Xbox and Bethesda convention that took place in June, on June 12th specifically, they stated that every game that they revealed was going to be releasing, or at least targeted for release, over the next 12 months. Diablo 4 was one of those titles, explicitly stated, all titles targeting to release over next 12 months. So, 12 months from June 12th, 2022 is June 12th, 2023. Now you can argue, well, it doesn't have to be down to the day, maybe they meant within the month. Okay, even if we give it within the month of June, this states that they are targeting Diablo 4 by Q2 2023 at the latest. Blizzard then confirmed 2023 for Diablo 4. I know some people are saying, oh, it's going to be like Christmas 2023. Again, explicitly stated as targeting within the next 12 months, all titles. Now again, Blizzard further confirmed 2023, so we gray out all of the current 2022 calendar as a possibility. That leaves us a 6-month window within 2023, the blue months here, during which D4 is being targeted for release. Of course, slowdowns, delays can always happen, but that seems to be the target right now. Now again, previous speculation led us to a date of March 21st as a potential release date for Diablo 4. That's just based off of the book theory. The book theory being precisely 154 days after the release of Tales from the Horadric Library, which is again on October 18th of this year. That takes us to March 21st. But that theory was devised before we knew about now the Book of Lorath, and it dates back 10 years. So, previously, we've had a number of Book ofs. Book of Tyrael, Book of Cain, Book of Adria. 5 months before Diablo 3 released, 154 days to be specific, the Book of Cain released. Then precisely 154 days before the Reaper of Souls expansion for Diablo 3 released, we got the Book of Tyrael. So when Tales from the Horadric Library was the only Diablo book on the horizon, we counted 154 days from then, and that took us to March 21st. However, Tales from the Horadric Library is an anthology of horror stories, whereas the Book of Cain, the Book of Tyrael, the Book of Adria, and now the Book of Lorath are lore-focused books. So if we were to count 154 days from the Book of Lorath's date, well, that takes us well outside of our window. We'd be somewhere in the gray zone. Not an impossibility, but it would be bizarre for Blizzard to have already, within just a couple months, if that, decided to push back the target release date of Diablo 4. Now you'll note that I said the Book of Adria, and you might be asking, well, when did that release? Well, the Book of Adria released in September of 2018, 2 months before BlizzCon 2018. And as per the rumors / the alleged leaks, BlizzCon 2018 was when Blizzard originally had planned to reveal Diablo 4. That ended up being cancelled, and instead it was revealed at BlizzCon 2019. Now, regardless, even if it wasn't Diablo 4, they still revealed Diablo Immortal, so there was a Diablo reveal that happened. And it was 2 months, not 5, ahead of BlizzCon. So typically what we have seen with these book launches is that they serve to build hype or feed off the hype of an upcoming release or reveal. Now again, the 154-day theory, that's from a decade ago. A lot has changed at Blizzard since then. Marketing tactics change. Book of Adria released only a couple years ago, so, well, I guess 4 years ago now, thanks COVID. But maybe a 2-month window is now closer in line to what they're looking at, so let's say 2 months from April 18th. Yeah, that takes us to roughly mid-June. It's taken us to right up against that 12-month window. However, we know that Legends of the Barbarian is releasing mid-June, so does it make sense to release the game and the novel around the same time? I mean, maybe it does. What's the strategy though? Generally, you have the game coming up, you have hype for the game, you have people that are eager to play, they cannot wait to play, and so you release a book a little bit early, they're going to buy the book because they're so desperate for anything, Diablo, so they're going to consume the book. Then when the game releases, they're too busy playing the game, right, to be buying more books, at least not right away. However, if you space things out at least a month, maybe that gives time for people to play through the game, and then, you know, they've beaten the story and then they want to learn more. So what if we go back to that March 21st? Maybe the Tales from the Horadric Library are stories to get us amped for D4. Then we have the release of the game. You got about a month before the release of the Book of Lorath, right? People have finished going through the campaign. People that care about story and lore, now they want to know more, so they buy that. And then a couple months later, you got the Legends of the Barbarian, more story related to Diablo lore. Alternatively, maybe you launch in May, where you have a month on either side. You have a month of build-up with the Book of Lorath, and then a month after for more Diablo. So this is obviously just speculation on potential marketing strategy here, but I think May or March, or maybe May specifically, makes the most sense here. You want to space your products out a little bit. But I turn the question to you folks. What are you thinking now? What could potentially be a release date in your minds? We're going to now rehash what these books entail and what the Book of Lorath signifies for some old theories and speculation. Again, the Tales from the Horadric Library. The description reads, while the eternal conflict rages, forward onward, horror and superstition of a purely sanctuary variety still prey on the hearts of its people. In a time long since forgotten, the Horadric Order was tasked with recording local legends, cautionary tales, and stories of the most twisted horror, in the hope that some innocents might be saved by their knowledge. Now the vaults are open. Direct from the Diablo development team and horror's preeminent minds comes Tales from the Horadric Library, a short story collection exploring the deepest, darkest corners of Sanctuary and the evils that lurk there. Now, it's very clear with Diablo 4, the theme is a return to darkness. They're leaning into the horror theme more than ever. So what I'm expecting from this is a sort of a spooky, scary to tell in the dark. I'm expecting real horror stories, not tales of heroics. I mean, there might be heroics involved, but really stories intended to scare, to frighten. Horror stories that are setting the tone and expectations of the kind of narrative that Diablo 4 will have. Maybe it'll touch upon some familiar characters or familiar places, but I don't think it's something intended to be a member berries. I don't think it's meant to be a nostalgia play. I think it's really setting the stage of what Sanctuary has become following the Malthael apocalypse of Diablo 3, and to truly convey the horror that has descended upon Sanctuary. Then the Book of Lorath. Its description reads, "Make your stand against the darkness with this comprehensive, stunningly illustrated artifact handed down by the Horadric Order, your key to the lore of Blizzard Entertainment's Diablo franchise. Amid the restless evil of Sanctuary, only the Horadrim, an ancient order of heroes and scholars, wield the knowledge needed to light the way for humanity. In the Book of Lorath, join Lorathnar, one of the last of the dwindling Horadrim, on a journey through Sanctuary's most powerful relics and the stories behind them. It is Lorath's hope that this volume will preserve his knowledge for all time, and pass it down to those who will inherit the fight against the primevals. This immersive must-have compendium with all new illustrations showcases the artifacts that have often been, and might yet be, the key to tipping the fate of the world." Now here's another consideration, folks. All new art, images, in theory, if this Book of Lorath were to contain spoilers for the story, well, you would not want that to release before the game releases. Now that said, Book of Cain, Book of Tyrael released before, there were no spoilers apparently, it was not a problem. But in theory, that could be one reason you'd want a book to release after the game. For instance, let's say there was supposed to be some twist in your story, if you're supposed to reveal something that you want to keep under wraps, well, if you want to be able to talk about that in a lore book, you can't put it in the lore book or release a lore book before the game. And then lastly, Legends of the Barbarian, Bul-Kathos. Its overview reads, "At the dawn of Sanctuary, legends were born. Don't miss this exclusive original Diablo graphic novel, chronicling the rise of Bul-Kathos." We got a lore video on that in case you're wondering who that is. "Progenitor of the Barbarian class and his ancient charge to defend Mount Arreat. Long before Bul-Kathos became known as the father of barbarians, he was father to only two, his twin children Nara and Hiram. Nara followed her father's path and became a great fighter, but the ways of their tribe never came naturally to Hiram. After years on walkabout, Hiram returns to his family, having discovered a new way, and a new power he seeks to claim with his father's help. It's described as an unforgettable, stunningly illustrated tale, at once the myth of a mighty king whose name was forged in battle, and the tragedy of a father who bears a heavy crown." Now, outside of the Book of Adria, Book of Cain, etc., in the past, there were a number of novelizations, Diablo novels. This dates all the way back to 2000, the first one, Demon's Bane. Now, Diablo 2 released June 29th, 2000, and 4 months later, October 31st, is when Demon's Bane released. Then the expansion Lord of Destruction released on June 27th, 2001, which was basically 2 months after the release of the second Diablo novel, Legacy of Blood, which released on May 1st, 2001. There were a few other novels, but then around the release of Diablo 3, we had the novel The Order, which was published on May 15th, 2012. And that was the exact day that Diablo 3 released. Then on November 27th, 2012, the anthology Heroes Rise, Darkness Falls released. This was a compilation of short stories not unlike Tales from the Horadric Library. And that was about 6 months after the launch of Diablo 3. Then the last Diablo novel published, Storm of Light, released on February 27, 2014, which was about a month before the release of Reaper of Souls on March 25th, 2014. Then 1 month later, on April 21st, the last Diablo novel kind of was published. It was an e-novella. There was no physical print, unlike the other books, and that one was called Morbid. So what we're seeing is patterns surrounding release dates. In particular, the last one, Reaper of Souls, we see a launch 1 month before and a launch 1 month after. Similarly, what are we looking at here? Well, we have 1 month between these two books, but we've also seen instances of a book release on the same day, or at least a novel release on the same day as the game itself. So if I was forced at gunpoint to pick a release date for Diablo 4, I would give a couple possibilities if I could. One would still be March 21st, as that's a month before April 18th. The second would be April 18th, launching on the same day as the Book of Lorath. And the third would be on May 23rd. You'll note that I've always picked Tuesdays because Blizzard has a tendency, doesn't always follow it, but a tendency to release things on Tuesdays. Alright, now lastly, the Book of Lorath all but confirms that the figure that we see in the gameplay trailer is Lorath Nar from Diablo 3, one of the new Horadrim, the young upstart who's infatuated with Kadala. Already was a pretty strong theory that that was Lorath. He clearly has a Horadric amulet. He has aged, decades have passed between D2 and D3, so it would make sense for him to be old. We also see what appears to be that Horadric glaive. Lorath wields this weapon, and it seems to be hidden in the shadows of his little hut there. At the end of Diablo 3, Lorath didn't seem like a terribly important character. If he's getting his own book, it's because they're making him a more important character in Diablo 4. And that further reinforces the theory that the grave that he is visiting is the grave of Tyrael, whom he calls brother and friend. He did not know Deckard Cain, so he would not be visiting Cain's grave and be talking to him like this. Also, Cain was cremated, but that's beside the point. The only thing that doesn't match for this to be Lorath is that the voice is different, but you can chalk that up to him being a lot older now. But we're going to conclude things there and turn the question to you folks. What do you make of all this? Do you agree? Do you disagree with these theories? Sound off in the comments. Also, be sure to check out this video on the multiple signs pointing towards a Diablo 4 beta coming up in the near future. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.